Good evening. Just waiting for a few more folks to join and we can get started. And special guests, I will add you in a few minutes, so just hang tight, please. Okay, good evening and welcome to the Becky Brown Girl Show. I'm your host, Becky Brown Girl, and tonight's topic is entitled Great Expectations, the Case for Polyamory. So I know this is like a big shift from what we were talking about last week, which was abstinence. But somebody shared a reel with me recently, and it got me thinking. It was about polyamory, but not sort of in the context of what most people perceive it to be. This was more talking about how we, as humans, put so many expectations on our partners, our romantic partners in particular, expecting them to be everything and fulfill every need that we have. And no one person can really successfully fulfill that role. So the notion of the reel, if any of you saw it in my story, because I shared it as well, is to sort of not use people, but take from them what they have the capacity to give you and appreciate and value them for that characteristic, and don't put more on them than is reasonable, in the same way that you don't want others to do that to you. We're also going to talk about sort of the more traditional polyamory that most people come to think, which is, there's many versions of it. And I'm happy to report that my good friend Rome put me in touch with someone with both personal and professional expertise on the topic, which I will join, or rather have her join momentarily. So it won't just be me sort of pontificating from a place of no expertise, because it is not my ministry. But as I always say, I'm not a relationship expert. I'm just here to talk about, topics that interest me and other people, and kind of get folks' opinions on them. But again, this is a judgment-free zone. So we're just talking. We grown, right? Anyway, so with that said, and without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and add my last minute clutch special guest. Her name is Nicosia Davis, and she already sent. Can you guys let me know if you can hear me well enough, because I have something that's kind of noisy in the background. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Dean. Welcome, Nicosia. Nicosia is a licensed clinical social worker. And as I mentioned a few moments ago, she is a participate in the poly lifestyle, and she can break down all of the different versions, because I know there's a few. And in addition, she is also a professional who can speak on this topic with some professional expertise. So it's not just us here shooting the shit. um Thing else that you would like the folks to know about you?
I am licensed in Alabama as well as North Carolina, soon to be Virginia, Georgia, and South Carolina. If anybody wants to reach out, discuss, if you need referrals, I'm available. So don't feel like you're out here exploring the world by yourself.
Excellent. And what else did I want to ask you? Oh, um, if you would like the folks to follow you at your professional IG and on any other platforms, doesn't just have to be Instagram, or your personal. Please feel free to put it in the chat. She is Southern Bell Therapy. That's her
Yeah.
professional IG. And I'm sorry because I'm going off the top now. Like we literally were just talking an hour ago. So, and her personal is Darling Nikki 06.
Yeah,
But yeah, if you want to put it in the chat for the folks, when you have a moment, then feel free. But
absolutely.
so like I said, I think a lot of people have a very specific perception of what polyamory is. So maybe from your professional point of view, if you want to explain to the people what in fact it is.
So a lot of times when people hear polyamory, they
Mm-hmm,
automatically think of polygamy, which is which is a man and multiple women, versus polyamory is not gender specific,
mm-hmm,
and it literally means love multiple people.
mm-hmm. Okay.
Um, I originally got into the lifestyle around 2011, 2012, because I was like, this is not making sense to me. Why I am expected to literally be someone's everything all the time. Um, I was in my 20s, I was in my late 20s, and I was just like, this is too much for one person.
Mm-hmm,
And so I started reading, I started exploring, and I was like, I like this. I like this life where on some level, I'm also a relationship anarchist. So that goes into
I want to
that as
hear.
well.
I want to hear about that too. I want to hear about all of it.
Um, where I truly believe people should make their relationship whatever they feel it should look like.
Mm-hmm,
Because a lot of times people get into relationships and they are trying to live up to what someone else has prescribed for that relationship,
mm-hmm,
whether it is where they live, how they raise their children, even their sex life.
mm-hmm.
And so for me, I'm like, that's not okay.
Right.
That's not okay for me. Um, and so I haven't subscribed to full blown monogamy since I was in my late 20s, early 30s.
So let me ask you, and again, folks, apologize because, or I apologize, I should say, because I did put the call out to ask, but I understand that some people like to live a poly lifestyle where only one of them is poly. So a lot of people are participating in the lifestyle, but the partner don't know.
Right.
So they
So
might
that's how,
have they might have notions of what, of what an ideal poly life looks like, but they can't get on here and talk about it. So I
right,
appreciate you for being open to doing that. But like I said, we just connected for those of you who are joining more later. Um we literally just connected like within the last 2 hours. So I didn't get to sort of preview with her everything I wanted to talk about. So
right.
so bear with us, right? Um but so one of the things that I wanted to talk about is, in our society, we're socialized to, have one partner and to, especially women, and to, um, you know, to get married and to have children and to live the traditional sort of American dream, monogamous lifestyle. And I, for myself personally, that's not only something that I have subscribed to, but also thought, that's what I want. Like when it comes to me in a relationship, if I love you, I don't want to share.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to share. Like, yeah, I'll share you with your friends, and that's it.
Right,
Um,
right.
however, and I don't, again, I know we just connected late, so I don't know if you had the chance to see the reel I posted.
I have.
But essentially, it was talking about how um it was comparing to women, like, as cartoons. One who has, a partner who makes her laugh and he's fun to hang out with, but he's not very serious. She's got somebody else that's like more serious that she can have these deep conversations with. She has somebody, I think the first person she was romantically involved with, and then she's got someone who she can hang out with, and because everyone has a limited capacity,
Mhm.
um like each person has I guess their thing, right?
Mhm.
And once again, everybody or one person is not going to be sort of your Swiss Army knife, is what they compared it to. And like you can just pull out all these different gadgets and they're going to fulfill all of your different needs in the same way that you're not going to be that to them. So
Mhm.
you're lucky if you get half or 60% or 70%. Like that's like you're doing great. But sometimes
Mhm.
people aren't even satisfied with that.
Right.
Um, so it's just giving a different outlook on um how you engage with, and and from my perspective, it didn't just have to be romantic partners, just the
Correct.
different relationships you interact with in your life, like you described. So polyamory isn't necessarily just about having sex with a bunch of people. It's about intimacy and connection. And but again, I'm a you the expert, so
I don't.
I'm gonna
I
let you
wouldn't say I'm an
elaborate.
expert. I wouldn't say I'm an expert. Um, and someone asked, can you share the pros and cons of
Yes,
polyamory?
please.
Uh, Pros are I can literally get all of my needs met, right? My primary partner hates Broadway shows. He hates musical theater. That is just not his thing. He's not an outdoorsy person versus I'm a camper.
Oh wow.
Can't get this man. He can't. The most outside time he's gonna do is a festival and back to his condo,
Right.
right? But I can call somebody else in and go, "Hey, I got tickets to see Lion King. Let's do a date night." And he's like, "Word." So I'm not forcing him into a space that he doesn't want to be in just simply so he could please me.
Right.
There's someone else in that space for that exact thing. And he's the same way, right? You cannot drag me to a baseball game. This
Mm-hmm.
man loves baseball. He loves hockey.
Mm-hmm.
That is my idea of hell on earth. And he's like, babe, me and she are going to the baseball game. And I'm like, all right, be safe. Y'all be good. I'm going home. I'm going to bed. I'm going on a date night. One of the first men I was involved with, me and his wife sounded like parents in a custody battle because we'd be like, all right, so who got him on Friday of the second week of February, and she had a boyfriend. And she actually got mad at me one weekend because I had to cancel our date weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, so now you left me with him.
So
And I was like,
I have so many questions, and please, people in the chat, ask away as well. But so you said it was your late 20s. So had you
mhm.
previously had like exclusive monogamous relationships, or were you just casually dating?
No,
Like,
I started exploring poly after an engagement that didn't make it to the wedding because I was just like, especially because I was raised in a two-parent household.
okay.
Um, so that was what I was taught. That's where I thought I was supposed to be headed.
Mm,
And every monogamous relationship I was in just did not feel comfortable for me
okay.
because I was always like, why am I constantly not? I don't want to be forced to go to somewhere I don't want just to make another person happy. And talk about when we talk about the pros and the cons, one of the pros is you start recognizing that you can't be selfish, you can't be jealous, because you literally have to separate yourself from those emotions in order to be in a healthy polyamory dynamic.
That's why I couldn't do it.
She said,
Mm-mm.
absolutely not.
Get somebody else to do it. Not gonna be able to do it for my old heads who know the double X posse. I like I said, it would, unless I was dating somebody casually and I didn't have that type of emotional attachment to them, which I don't know if that would be considered polyamory, like you dating somebody who's also dating other people. But if I'm dating, like single, not in a relationship, just casually dating, I'm assuming, that unless we've had a conversation, that the person I'm dating is probably dating other people as well. The only time I would maybe ask specific questions is if, I'm like feel like I want to get exclusive with that person. But otherwise, I'm assuming that's what they're doing anyway, and I don't want to know. Even even in the even in the like we're not together, I'll need to know. Just do whatever you're doing. I'll need to know. Just be safe because I don't have the temperament.
And Rome said you have to be built for it. And you truly do have to be built for it,
Yeah.
right? Because it's not meant for everybody.
Mm-mm.
And you were talking about communication. People in monogamous relationships, and this came from the years that I did work as a couples therapist,
Mm-hmm.
where people don't communicate, like even on the basics.
Yep.
So they can't fathom the idea that I can have open and honest communication with multiple partners and everybody be okay.
Yeah.
You all, and people also have to recognize a lot of people don't have strong boundaries.
No.
So the idea that they could communicate what boundaries should look like in a relationship is unheard of. And so that's where you get a lot of people that go, "Oh, I'm gonna be poly so that I can cheat." They can't. Like,
Right.
yes, cheating can happen in the polyam community because people break those boundaries, the lying, that type of thing. However, it still comes down to the people within that relationship.
So you said you okay. So there was one question in the chat that I wanted to ask you, and then before I lose my train of thought, because I can refer back to that one. You said you have a primary partner.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how do you find that that someone is interested in that lifestyle? Like, are there like groups that you're in, or like how do you get to know, or is it just a question that you ask people that that you're interested in dating up front?
So thankfully, in the world of social media, we have groups for everything.
Right.
I just so happened to meet him at a house party for New Year's Eve of mutual friends.
Okay.
We got to talking, and I was like, and I typically lay it out up front, that hey, I'm poly, it is what it is. And he's like, oh, okay, me too. And I was like,
Oh,
this
okay.
this meeting
That was
another
easy.
meeting a poly man in the wild is almost unheard of.
Not in the wild though.
And just in the deep wild yonder is unheard of.
That's funny.
Because and once I put it forward, there was no feeling like he had to beat around the bush. There was no feeling like he had to play me. Um, and so at that point, we proceeded to go, okay, let's see what this actually looks like.
Are okay. So many questions.
Mm.
I wish I had gotten to write all these down earlier. But so would you say that you're in love, like in love, sort of in the way that people perceive it, or is it like does love look different in a poly relationship? Is it more about like mutual respect? Like, how are you not a jealous person?
I am not. Here's why.
Ever? You've never been like that?
Ever. Here's why. That person, and someone asked, did some of this attitude come about from how I was raised? So a little backstory. My parents have been together since they were 16 years
Oh
old.
wow. Okay. Good for
They
them.
are now 71 and 72 years old.
Wow. Okay.
However, how they ended up married was dad was dating a woman, mom was dating a man. She had on his engagement ring, but they were not engaged.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And he gave her the ring their sophomore year in college. And then randomly around 25, 26, he's like, so, hey, are we going to get married? Are we doing this? And she's like, okay, I guess let's get married. So
Okay.
I was almost raised in a space of having an understanding that people will be people. Your relationship will be your relationship, however you define it. And
That's very
so,
progressive, especially given, how old your
the
parents are and the era they
age,
grew
right,
up in.
right.
Yeah.
And so that laid a solid foundation for my outlook on relationships. Because for them to have been born in the 50s, early in the 50s, they are, I call them weird all the time, right? Like, I'm like, y'all are weird in the sense that I was 2 when my mother finally added my father's last name.
Okay. And they were
Like,
married
and they had been married
already.
for 5 years at that point.
Okay.
Like, she's like, oh yeah, we got a baby. I might want to add your last name. And prior to his stroke, he had a stroke in 2019. Prior to his stroke, me and him used to sit down and I'd be like, Daddy, did you ever have a problem that she hyphenated her name? And he said, I married a partner. I didn't marry a pet. And I was like,
Okay, Dad.
I said, oh. He said, I married her to be my partner, not to be my property. And I was just like, oh,
Okay, Dad.
okay. So that goes into the foundation of also maintaining a level of independence within the relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you start talking about this, like when Rome said, this has to be in you, those things have always been in me. So I've never looked at another person as my property,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And I remember a guy, I was actually engaged to him. I remember he called me one night. He had been out with his frat brothers and he had been drinking and he had this guilty conscience, right?
Mm-hmm.
He called and he was like, I slept with my ex-girlfriend. I was like, my boy, it's 2 a.m. Could this conversation have not waited until 6?
Listen, you're better than me.
So when we woke up, we talked again. He's like, you're not mad at me. I was like, you made a valid decision. You made a conscious decision. I, I can't be mad at the decision you decide to make because at the end of the day, I can't unfuck her. You can't unfuck her. And this is where we are. And he was just like, he was floored. He was taken aback because I'm just like, you're not my property. And it is what it is.
So in your perception, it doesn't take anything away from the connection
For me.
that the two of you have for him
Mm-mm,
to be intimate with somebody else. Listen, I understand that men, more so than women, typically can, separate the act from the meaning.
mm-hmm.
So it's although if it's in the reverse, they ready to kill everybody up in this mother.
Mm-hmm.
Because once again, they didn't agree to be poly.
Right.
Or rather, they didn't agree for you to be poly, only for them.
Correct. And so you
That's not how that
have to actually
works.
find a like-minded person who is actually poly,
Right.
not, oh, I'm poly, but you're not,
Right.
right?
No, that's
We can't be
absurd.
po- we cannot coexist. You can't be poly and I can't be mono, and I can't be poly and you can't be mono, right? It does cause it does cause issues with other people. That ain't my ministry.
Somebody in the comments says he's dating a lady who's in a polyamorous relationship and he's single. That's kind of how that works, though, isn't it? Like, y'all have your primary partners, like you said. And so how many other, if you don't mind my asking, like, I don't, you let me know if it's, anything I'm asking is too
No,
personal,
you're
but,
fine.
so how many other, like, partners are associated with that primary relationship, or do you just say, I want to go out with this person, I want to go out with that person, and then you just let your primary partner know?
So you have different types of poly, right?
Uh-huh.
I'm on what you call a kitchen table or garden party. That means everybody can be in the same room. Um, Everybody can sit at the kitchen table, but that does not mean everybody is involved with each other.
Okay.
Um, then you have your polycules, which is what a lot of people are used to seeing. That's where you're used to seeing two women involved with one man, or Neo right
I was
now.
gonna say like Nia. Well, now he got four of them.
And I don't know their I don't know their
Mm.
dynamic. So they may just be Neo with four individual relationships, or
Hmm.
they may all be involved with each other.
I feel like I read or heard somewhere that they said, or maybe he talked about it, that they were. It's the second way you described that they were also involved with each other. I think I read that, and if anybody else knows, not that it matters, but since we mentioned him,
Right.
I think that's true.
Um, and then you have your hierarchy and your non-hierarchy polydynamics. Your hierarchy are your this is my husband, this is my wife, and then everybody comes under that. Um, you have your non-hierarchical polydynamics, which is pretty much everybody is on the same level. There is no hierarchy. There is no now that doesn't change titles. That's the key, but it means everybody is my number one or what have you. Um,
Okay.
Someone asked, what's the difference between poly and swinging?
Yes.
Poly are actual relationships. Swinging is sex. That's it.
What? So if I said I'm in a relationship, with which I can, whatever. I'm in a monogamous relationship, but I get other things from other people that are not sexual. Because, like I said in the beginning, when I first put the request out, is not my ministry. I am not judging
Mm-hmm.
this young lady or anybody else who is in the lifestyle. Is just not a ministry for me. Um, but what I wanted to know was, I just totally lost my train of thought.
So
Talking all the
someone said, how does emotional intelligence serve the situations? You have to be extremely emotionally intelligent and self-aware to understand the people you are involved with, as well as who you are as a person, right? You get a lot of people that jump into poly because, oh, I don't know who I am, so I'm going to use this environment to figure out who I am. No.
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so there's so many questions in the chat. And my brain is just, going over time. So I'm gonna rely on some of the folks in the chat that have asked questions. I'm going backwards. So Legend is the Elder, he's full of questions. He says, how territorial are you? Clearly, Miss Davis is not territorial at all. I am the opposite. Not if I'm in a relationship.
And it's simply because when you ask how territorial I am, I look at it like this. Everyone has autonomy. Hey, I'm a social worker, so this goes into that. Everyone has autonomy, and they can make their own decisions and choose how they live their life.
Yep.
I can also make a decision of how I choose to be in
Yep.
their life. And, um, I I'm not I'm I don't say I'm territorial at all, because I'm like, if you're here, you're here. And we've already discussed the terms of your being here, and if you're not here, you're not here.
Do you feel like you can build like deep relationships with people like that, or is that not? I'm not saying that you don't have that. I just wouldn't. I don't know. It's so foreign to me. Not because I feel like I can't have deep relationships with people that aren't my mate, but because I feel like the more sort of vulnerable and in depth you get with somebody, like that the primary partner is going to feel, a way about that, even if it's a strictly platonic relationship. Like, I don't know, I feel like it would create what we've described. And I know you talked about the communication, but I also think it comes down to the way people like their makeup. I don't know if their socialization. I don't know.
So
I
it
don't know,
is a lot of
but
times. It is a lot of times how we've been socialized. A lot of people end up coming into poly or E&M, which is ethical non-monogamy, after a horrible breakup, or they were raised in a more free loving environment,
Mhm.
um, or they're deconstructing their beliefs around westernized relationship dynamics.
um yes, because it is definitely more common. I mean, I know it's becoming more popular um in American society, but I still think the standard is, monogamy and marriage and
Mhm.
between two people and whatever. But like I know in other cultures, it's
It-
it's much more common um outside of this country. So again, I'm sure you go somewhere else, it wouldn't be a thing. It wouldn't be like a hot topic of conversation. Is just the way they're socialized.
right.
Um, so going back to some of these other questions or comments, somebody says everyone in is poly in their 20s. Yeah. um okay, so once again, Legend is Elder asked, maybe this is a man-minded question. Group sex in polyamory, how does that work? All they care about is the sex part. In reality, that's all they care about.
So
How does that
that
work?
is truly dependent upon the couple, the dynamic,
Mhm.
right? Because then that also moves into swinging, and the two can mix. It cannot mix for me, but it can mix for others.
So you would be okay with in your poly relationship if your partner is into swinging, but you're just not going to participate. Again, I feel like now this might be getting too personal. So you can let me know if I'm asking
Okay,
too many questions or getting
we
too
didn't
personal.
get time to actually bond before we had this
No,
conversation.
no
I'm a
problem.
I have no problem when I'm to tell someone this is too much for me. However,
Okay.
um, in this case, I'm fine, right? Um,
This is a judgment free zone, commenters.
it
I'm just letting y'all know.
for me, it is very much, hey, use protection, be blessed, don't bring home no babies. Godspeed and good luck. Don't wake me up when you come in.
You are very open minded. I admire it because I like I said, I'll be ready to. Like I will say, okay, so I've been going to therapy for a couple years, and I have learned some things. I've learned, plenty about myself and about how, my interactions with others, and trying not to take um, everything that other people do in their interactions with me personally,
Mhm.
unless it's like really directed at me, because sometimes it's just something that they might be dealing with or whatever. Like on another show I did, one of my guests said, like, people are meaning making machines. We make everything that other people do mean something about them, the way they see us, yada, yada, yada. So I try, right? I'm a work in progress, but I try not to take everything that other people are doing all the time and make it necessarily about me.
Right.
However, um, when it comes to like relationship dynamics, I've also learned how to establish like what is acceptable to me and what isn't.
Hmm.
And understanding that if I am with somebody and I've said, hey, I'm not cool with this, and they continue to do it, then you don't really respect me. You don't respect my boundaries. And then if I choose to continue to stay in that situation, is not that person's fault, is mine.
Correct.
Because I'm consciously making a decision to accept something I said I didn't find acceptable.
Correct.
Um, so I think in the context of this conversation, like it really, like you said, boils down to you, what you find acceptable, what you're willing to deal with, and the communication. I mean, maybe one day in 20, 30 years, I might say I'm ready for my poly relationship because I'm not going to care anymore.
Right.
But I'm still very much tied to that sort of traditional um view of a one-on-one. If
Hmm.
I'm in love, I want to be with this one person. Now, in fairness, I did think it made sense that that one person doesn't have to be your everything, but that's why you have friends. You have friends, and other people that you interact with that can fulfill other needs, not that are not necessarily sexual, that your partner can't. But I think some partners feel like, no, I have to be everything to you.
Hey, in the clinical mental health world, we call that an attachment issue.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I've talked about that with my
Mm-hmm.
therapist.
And that goes back to, once again, what we've always been socialized to believe is that your person, right, is going to be your everything all the time.
Mhm.
Well, what happens when that person can't step up to be that everything all the time?
Yep.
What happens when that person is dealing with their own stuff and they can't be your everything all the time? Now you're left out here going, hold on, I can't get the intimacy. I can't have the emotional intimacy with this person because hell, life is happening for them,
Right.
right? So how do I get those emotional needs met? Or um I can't have physical intimacy because life is happening, right? I was in military relationships. What happens when that man was gone for 18 months?
Did he?
And I literally got to see him 2 weeks out of 18 months.
Oh my God. So that was also a poly relationship, or okay.
Hmm. That was actually
So
that was actually one of the first poly relationships I was in.
I know they love you. I mean, of course they would love you in spite of that, right? Because I don't think it's every man's objective necessarily to like be with multiple women. Yeah, right. But if it's sanctioned, I mean, they feel like what more could they ask for? In fact, on that subject, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and we were discussing how, because I'm 50 and he's like a few years younger than me, how um in our era, he thought it was specific to our era that, like, men would feel like, okay, there's women that you marry, right? And
Hmm.
then there's women that you smut out and
Hmm.
never the two shall meet, right?
Hmm.
So meanwhile, but they still have these desires, right? These
Hmm.
freaky desires that they don't want to talk about with their partner, which is weird. Like, you can't talk about that with the person that you married.
No,
Um
no, because
and so rather
secret.
so rather than try to find somebody who they are compatible with, because yeah, you're looking for a whole package, right? But they don't even want to approach that with their primary partner because, oh God forbid, because she's the Madonna and the other one is the whore, right? So they use the whore to fulfill the sexual needs, and then they go back to their wife but you cheating. Instead of having a
So,
conversation about honestly about what your needs are and determining if this person can meet them or if y'all are compatible. And again, I know everything shouldn't focus around the sexual aspect of your relationship because there's so much more to it. But I'm saying I think that disconnect, I don't know if it's the way we were socialized or if that disconnect makes them cheat.
so partially why Rome was okay with telling you about me is because me and Rome have been friends on Facebook now almost a decade or more. And I'm known to just randomly just start going in from a therapist perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And it came up in my memories a few days ago about something I posted during the pandemic where I was like, hey, listen, your husband ain't depressed because of the pandemic. He's depressed because he knows he's not going to homecoming to get that girl to do that thing that he liked, and he married you.
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
I know that ruffled feathers.
Oh God, yes it did. And so I was saying in that a lot of times Mary who looks good on paper
Mm.
and makes them feel good and makes their image look good and feed their ego, not the person that they actually love.
Man in the comments. I know the married men ain't gonna say nothing.
And you can tell, right? Because they are the ones that are cheating. They are the ones that are constantly seeking something outside of their relationship, is because they married the good girl. They married the church girl. They married the career girl. They married the person that looks good for their image, right? Not the not the not the hoe, not the tattoo girl, not the all black girl. They married the person A that was in front of them when they felt like they were supposed to get married,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
B, they married. Good job, King Smitty. I love that for you. I'm so happy you did that. Um,
I'm trying to get through these comments now to see what else
he
they're
said, I
asking. But go
married
ahead.
the one I loved. And I'm
Oh,
so
okay.
happy you do that. I'm so happy you did that. Hey, boo, that's my best friend. She been around for my antics long
Who,
enough.
who is who is
Uh, say sorry like you mean it.
Okay.
Um, and when they do that, now um they can't share their darkest fantasies, right? They can't share um what they actually want.
Mm-hmm.
As someone said, a lot of us can't have the one that won't, so we marrying the one that we're with.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
so if
but by the way,
if
I
you're
think a lot of people settle
and if they're
in a
marrying
lot
the
of
one that
different
they're
ways.
with, yeah, and if they're marrying the one that they're with, are they going to feel like they are safe enough to be vulnerable with that person on the deepest level possible? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. You spitting. Wait, I want to go back to one of the comments that was a little further back. I'm behind here on my comments, sorry. Um King Smitty, we already talked about jealousy. She doesn't have a jealous bone in her body. There was something else that somebody asked about. Rome was asking, is swinging a good way to like get introduced to poly to see if you about that
Mm.
life? I feel like that is such an extreme.
That's a bit much for some people. Keyword here for some people. Um, it just truly depends on the people within within that relationship, right? Some people can go, okay, we're gonna just try dating other people. We're not breaking up. We're not divorcing. We're just gonna go and date other people. We're gonna open up our marriage, right? Then some people can want to jump off the cliff off the left side and go, we swinging. That Now that brings on a whole different can of worms within that dynamic, because a lot of times people don't lay down, once again, those boundaries of what is allowable.
Yeah. Well, look, yes, because like off the like kind of related, but a little bit off the topic. Again, topics that come up on social media, people talking about like threesomes and things and wanting to spice up their relationship. And um I think if both people are open to doing that, cool.
Rock on.
Um but I think that sometimes, people, and usually it's the women that are agreeing to do it to try to keep their man satisfied. And so, like, if he's going to be with somebody else, at least I know who he's going to be with. Okay. You're
And
opening up Pandora's
what I
box.
literally say to that is, if you're gonna open up your marriage, don't open it up to satisfy one person within the
Yes.
marriage, right? Because at that point you're only doing it to placate. You're not doing it for
Right.
satisfaction. And if you ever get to the point where your sex is placation, you're making it feel like an obligation and a chore, and nobody actually wants to do it.
That's a bar. No placation, no obligation. I don't know. You should do something
Mm-hmm.
with that. Um, so Moby248 says, I guess when that question is asked, and maybe he was referencing, and I could be too far back in the comments, but was this in reference to my question about threesomes, or was that about something else? Because he says the next question is always, why am I not enough for you?
Because you're not
Because
supposed
you don't know your personnel.
that part. You don't know the person you're sleeping beside. You know the person they want you to know. You
Yep.
be you are the representative. So I currently work in a domestic violence agency, and what I tell a lot of my clients is the person that you meet is kind of like a house, right? When you're going to buy a house, that house is going to be staged well. You're not going to see the flaws. It's not going to
Mm-hmm.
be until you move into that house, you sign your name on the mortgage, you start paying the bills, you done got your furniture in, you living in that house, and then you figure out this house is falling apart. That's because you never knew the house in the first place. And people are the same way. So you literally as a person, I have to have a level of vulnerability with the people I'm involved with.
Absolutely. 1000%. Otherwise, like, yeah, I mean, I don't ever feel like, even with friends, um, my truest and closest friends are the ones that like know me inside out.
Mm-hmm,
Like, I could literally tell them anything, and I know they're not, I know and feel confident that they're not going to go run and tell something I told them in confidence
mm-hmm,
to, a bunch of other people and kiki about it later. Them type of people, like, and I've always been the type that's felt comfortable, obviously I talk a lot. And that feels comfortable sharing things, but I've learned that over time, like, you have to be much more discerning in who
yeah.
you share
Who you
information with,
do?
because some people are great listeners. Will
Mm-hmm,
just sit and listen and listen and listen, and you telling all your business and
mm-hmm,
making mental notes and making notes in the phone and wherever they're making notes, telling whatever, but they ain't told you nothing. Or they'll like fake, you know peel back the onion. They'll peel
mm-hmm.
they'll peel that like flaky skin part off, but they're not going deep into the bulb of the onion. Meanwhile, you
Right.
done cut it all apart and they know everything. And yeah, so now I'm like, oh yeah. It reminds me kind of are you Game of Thrones watcher?
Absolutely.
Okay, so do you remember when Tyrion told three different people that he wanted to marry Marcella off to like
That's
a
it.
different
Yeah,
person to see who was going to go back and tell Cersei? Yeah,
like that.
like that type of stuff. Like give them false information and see if it comes back to you, and
Mm-hmm.
be like, okay, so I know who I can trust and who I can't. But I don't like playing games with people. I just like to use my newfound discernment. Um, and try to establish whether or not there's somebody I feel like I can be really open with or not. So,
Absolutely.
um, so yes, say sorry like you mean it. We did talk about the different types of poly. Um, Legend is the Elder asked, does poly keep the sexual desire satisfied? Oh, wait, hold on. Before we get into that, since y'all love to talk about sex. Okay, gentlemen, how do y'all feel? Like, especially the ones who feel like they would support it, right? Who would support it in theory, but that aren't actually participating in that lifestyle. Would you feel comfortable with your primary partner being sexually involved with another man? Hmm. I'll wait.
But I'll wait.
I'll wait, because I already know the answer. It's a hell no. Very few men. I mean, look, I know, Corn would suggest that some men are into that. Like they like to watch, they like to watch and stuff. But that's a topic for another day. Anyway,
You
um,
have people saying nope, and that's hard, which is understandable, right? Once again, this is not a lifestyle that is meant for everybody, right? Rome said hands off.
uh, okay. So Godbolt says Polly gets a bad rap. You got to come in all parties with understanding and intentions. Yep.
Absolutely.
But again, I think the way it's sensationalized on social media is just to make it look like I'm the
Mhm.
man, I'm a player, I got a harem of women. They're at my beck and call, they do everything I say, but rarely. Now I've seen a couple of instances where there were like women who had, multiple male partners. And of course, now they're looking at the women like, oh well, I got, well, like what would be acceptable in the reverse, like they have a problem with now. But if those people don't have a problem with it, then what is it? What concern is it of yours? That's the whole point. Hence, again, why I said this is a judgment-free zone. And like you said, people should do what works for them. If it doesn't work for you and you can't handle it on both sides, then you shouldn't be having a half a poly relationship and cheating.
Correct. Correct. Uncle
Anyway.
Adobo said if she's on vacation with her friends, enjoy hall pass.
Oh, we talked about hall
Legend
passes too. Mm-hmm.
Legend said a woman I'm casual with. I think I could do poly. Uncle Double, if I don't have to be a party to it, possibly. Poly Legend is the elder said poly with the woman I'm in love with, someone I don't play about. Nah, I couldn't do poly. And once again, that's okay.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I'm in a group on Facebook called Black and Poly. And it's about 5 or 6 thousand of us in that group. Um, and we talk about everything. Like there we have a whole Halloween setup where we go and meet the other poly people in the community.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
Because like with anything, everybody wants to have those that understand their struggles, right? And poly relationships go through things just like normal mono relationships, where you have partners who are all in one day, and next thing you know, we like, hold on, when y'all break up?
Oh,
When
I'm like, what is this
did
weird
y'all
quote,
break
sir?
up?
What, somebody asked earlier in the conversation, what if, like, does anyone in the interaction ever get jealous? Like, not you, because we've already established that that is not you, but are there any other people that might feel jealousy, even if they say initially like they're good with it, but over time, because over time of spending with someone, you develop like more,
Oh,
personal feelings for them.
oh, absolutely. People get jealous within the poly community because it might be it might be that this person is spending more time. I'm a meta's your
Mm-hmm.
primary, right? Or you might be might get jealous because, oh, you did this thing with my meta, with your other woman or your other man, right?
Mhm.
You went on vacation to Jamaica when I have been telling you I wanted to go to Jamaica type stuff. Or just jealousy is a human emotion. And so yes, jealousy does happen.
Yeah, yeah, right. That because again,
It
that my
does.
so my thoughts. I guess my thoughts on I know myself, and I know, like I said, that's just not something based on my makeup. Mm-mm. Um, but also, I think about like the safety factor because if you're sleeping with multiple people and those people are sleeping with multiple people, by the way, you could be doing that and not be in a poly relationship, right? So it's not just about that; it's that that that's happening in a poly relationship, whereas in a monogamous relationship or whatever other situation you might be in, your partner can be sleeping with multiple people anyway.
Mhm.
Um, but how do you address that? Because you obviously want to maintain, safety and
That goes back to that communication piece of being literally open and honest about the boundaries you have of, hey, if you're sleeping with somebody else, um use protection. um Let me know if there is an accident so I can go get tested. um don't don't do it in the house, don't do it in my bed. um, don't do it around the kids. It literally comes down to having the most open and honest communication that two or three human beings could possibly have.
oh, kids. Now that's a great question. So do you have children
I do not
yourself?
have children.
Okay.
I do not have children.
Do any of your partners have children?
Uh, a partner I had when I first moved back to North Carolina in 2020 did.
They were young or they
He
were older?
was 5.
Okay. So, I mean, at that point, what does he really know? Um, but I
Oh,
but I wonder, like, I'm just curious for kids who are sort of old enough to start putting things together, especially if they're spending time with, other friends or going to, other people's houses and seeing like, hey, in this house they have. And
mhm,
again, I mean, our society is a lot different than it was, when I was a kid.
mhm,
But
mhm.
so a lot of households look different. I mean,
Absolutely.
obviously you have same sex relationships, like you have a lot of whole spectrum of
Mhm.
of different types of relationships. So, um, I again, I guess it's my I don't want to call it ignorance, but I'm just trying to conceive of how, like, what does that look like for a child? Is that something that you've ever had to deal with outside of that other situation, or like if you're counseling a couple that's in the poly life and they have children, like what sort of advice would you give to them
I
maybe?
t- I tell people to have true conversations with their children on an age appropriate level. If
Okay.
I can tell you how, like literally, I have books on my daddy went to jail last night. Like that's a book that I've literally given clients
Oh
to
wow.
talk to their children about daddy going getting locked up like
Okay.
last night.
Wow.
Um, it's the same concept of mommy has a friend, daddy has a friend. This is what this friendship looks like. Because where a lot of people fear their kids is they don't want to have the conversations because either they are afraid it's going to force their kid to grow up too soon, or I don't want my kid to know that. Darling, your kid knows more than you think they do,
Especially in
ex-
this day and age.
especially in this day and age. And if they're not getting the information from you, they are not necessarily getting the information that you want them to know, how you want them to know it, and in what space you want them to know the actual truth.
Mm, that's also a very
Like
good point.
I had, I tell anybody, and my best friend can tell you about my mother. I have like, my mother sat me down at 10, like, got me out of my bed at